Why was World War I so bloody? Alright? Here is the setup of that. When you look at the trenches, originally they are foxholes. Right? When you are charging an enemy and they have a machine gun set up and you have a shovel and they start shooting at you and the only place you can get away is down on the ground, while you're down on the ground you're going to start digging a hole, right? You're going to dig down into what we call a foxhole. Eventually they start connecting the foxholes. As they connect the foxholes, they then work them into a system of trenches. You may have seen this pattern in the video, right? Alright. So if you've seen this pattern, you know that these happen mostly on the Western Front. So this is in France and Germany that this happened. In some places, the war traveled only 100 yards in either direction, while hundreds of thousands of troops would die. Alright. And here's the problem. Alright. They would dig this frontline trench right here. Alright. And then they would dig a retreat passage. Just like this. To a secondary trench. Alright, and we're just going to make these straight across for the sake of time. Okay. And you would dig this, and then you would have a retreat passage over here. Alright, so this one is straight, and you get one right here. At the back of the retreat passages, you set up bunkers that you can put a machine gun into. Okay. And on the front lines, you're also going to set up bunkers, right, that you can shoot a machine gun out of. The submachine gun allows them to shoot up to 300 times faster than a soldier with a musket. Okay? So we're going to look at that tomorrow. The interesting thing about the machine gun is that in no man's land, out here, in between the trenches, alright, so you got the opposing trenches over here. Whoops, got a little carried away there. Okay. And you got your retreat passages. At night, as we talked about, they would sneak out and set up barbed wire. And the barbed wire is going to roll like this. They're not going to stretch it out. Okay? And it's going to be on these stakes. And what you want to do with it is you want to try and funnel a charging enemy down into a certain area, right? So you want to make it look like the middle is the best place to go. So what would happen then is these machine guns, instead of pointing and shooting straight across this way, the machine guns are going to shoot at an angle like this. Alright? This one's going to shoot at an angle like this. And this one's going to shoot at an angle like this. Alright? And the point of that is if I'm a soldier over here, I'm going to draw my little soldier for you. Get my little pointy hat on. Okay? If I'm a soldier over here, I'm going to peek up over the trench. I might even use a little telescope thing that you've seen before. Look and see if the machine gun's looking at me. Oh, guess what? He's looking over here. Alright, it's time to charge. Here we go. Avoiding the barbed wire. Snaking through the kill zone. Bad news. Who's actually shooting at me?
Two other people.
People down here. Keep this in mind tomorrow. Okay? Throw your paper wads at someone who's looking at somebody else. It's a good way to keep them from trying to cheat and dodge. Fair enough? Okay? The other problem, as you saw, is they started sending those flying pigs, right? Or you would have artillery up on the hill. So let's make artillery up here on the hill. I'm going to draw you a fancy artillery cannon. Get ready, this is going to be fancy. Alright, so you got the big wheel and you got the cannons. You saw these, the big Bertha guns, right? They can be up to 7 miles away and accurately hit what they're shooting at. Alright, first time for that. So they're going to be launching projectiles over here. These guys are going to tuck into a bunker that they have dug in the side of the trenches. I got my brown right here. Alright, so here's our bunker. We're looking at the trench this way. We're going to put sandbags up over the top here, stacked up. Okay, here's the bottom of the trench. There's going to be a bench in here like this. Alright, on the back side, you're going to have a little space up, and then there's going to be a dugout right here that they've sandbagged in. Alright, so you can crawl up in this dugout. You should have seen one of these at the museum if you peeked in and kind of looked off to the right in one of those trenches. So while they're getting bombarded with the artillery, it's going to make big pockmarks out here where it hits. So there's going to be big holes. You saw the big hole replicated for you at the museum, yes? Think about the size of that. Why is it in the floor, Miss Dawson? Because you can get buried by this artillery, right? It's a good place to describe artillery. Alright? So while that's happening, these guys are hiding in these little bunkers here. Okay, here's my little scared man. We'll get him with some prayer there. Don't want to offend anybody, but I think that's pretty accurate, right? Okay. Alright, so there's my little scared guy. And then, whenever the bombardment stops, this side is going to blow a whistle. Alright, and these guys are then going to charge. Does that make sense? Alright, tomorrow when you get with Gadberry's class, alright, when it's time for trench warfare, set up some desks and some chairs to funnel the enemy down into an area, right? Set up some desks and chairs to make your trenches. Okay? Funnel them down into an area. Right? Set up some reserves back here so that if you have to retreat, when the enemy follows you, they're following you in a straight line. At which point, when you turn the machine gun on and you shoot it down that retreat passage after the last Allied guy goes through, the last guy on your team, what happens to the other team? Offensive over, right? Okay, offensive over. Alright? So understand that all this is going on. Then, somebody gets the bright idea that they're going to put poison gas into the artillery. So now we're going to lob a projectile over. The projectile is going to hit. From the projectile, you're going to get poison gas. Poison gas settles at the lowest possible point. Alright? You got two options. Put your gas mask on. Well, check that. You got three options. Put your gas mask on, alright, and get out. Pee on a rag, put it over your face, and get out. Alright? Or die, right? As soon as you're jumping out of the trenches because of the gas, what happens to you?
You get shot.
Opposing machine guns are now shooting at you. Does that make sense? So it was a lose-lose situation when the gas came in. The only thing that they didn't really count on is when you shoot poison gas, you have to pay attention to the direction of the wind. Because the wind will push the gas back on your own troops.
That's a smart idea.
It's dumb if you shoot it and the wind changes, right? Because it lingers for quite some time. Right? It also settles in the soil. Alright? So you got all this trash out here in no man's land, and if you saw the trees in the video, what happened to them?
They're all dead.
They're all dead. Questions about trench warfare? Alright, that's